every day. It's one power indescribable, and you speak of it with every word you say. Mysterious until you know the truth. It's as simple as the love inside of you. Call it God, call it Spirit, call it Jesus, call it Lord, call it Buddha, Baula, Hashem, or heaven's door. But whatever name you give it, it's all one power, can't you see? It's the power of the Lord in you and me. One power, one power, one power. We speak so many languages, different clothing, different colors, different names. But different is only dangerous when we forget that in our hearts we're all the same. We remember when we close our eyes to see that such differences were never meant to be. Call it God, call it Spirit, call it Jesus, call it Lord, call it Buddha, Baula, angel's wings, or heaven's door. It's Muhammad, it's your mind, it's your soul, and it's your sign. It's the universe, it's music, Mother Earth and Father Time. But whatever name you give it, it's all one power, can't you see? Whatever name you give it, it's the very air we breathe. Oh, it's the power of the Lord in you and me. One power, one power, one power, one power, one power, one power. It's the moment of creation. It's the everlasting peace. It's the freedom of forgiveness. It's the sweetness of release. It's the joy of inspiration. It's the sunshine on your face. It's the birthright of all nations. It's the boundlessness of space. It's the beauty of a baby in the serenity of sleep. It's the anger we abandon for its love that's most deep. It's one power.
I'm supposed to speak now. Thank you, Lainey Bernstein, Matt, Jonathan, Julie, Daniel Namod for writing it. Can you feel it? This one power. The one power. Ernest Holmes calls it the thing itself. That's what he calls it. And we're starting with that chapter. It's the first of 4 introductory chapters in the Science of Mind textbook, the thing itself. It's the one thing, and we're starting here, right here on this ground, because we have to intellectually understand it. As we intellectually understand about this thing known as universal reality, this thing itself, we have to start there before we can actually find our place in it. So that's where we're starting from today, the thing itself. So, you know, there's questions. It's been through all humankind, I would suspect. And you know, the question is on everybody's mind and heart is, well, how does this thing work? How does it all work? What's it all about? Whatever this it is. And Ernest Holmes starts this out right out of the chapter. I still have to speak. Whew. He tells us, let us approach the science of mind normally, happily, willing to accept, glad to experiment, hoping and believing that as a result of our efforts, we shall each derive a great good, a sound understanding of the natural laws of life, as they apply to the individual and our relationship to the whole universal scheme of things. He says,
next slide.
Oh, thank you.
There we go.
Maybe you should take that from here on out. This is the simple meaning of true metaphysical teaching, the study of life, and the nature of the law, governed and directed by thought, always conscious that we live in a spiritual universe that God is in, through, around, and for us. So this is, in the science of mind, the only leap of faith that is required of each of us. It's the only one leap. And can we take that leap? Is that there's a spiritual dimension to this reality. That's the only leap that needs to be made. And the reason why the leap, quite frankly, ought to be made is because scientifically, they're getting close, but scientifically, they've not been able to prove or disprove the existence of God. That's the good news. They haven't proved it or disproved it. And so we begin to explore what we learn from the natural world, and then we learn from our own mystical experiences and the wisdoms of all the ages, and that's what New Thought is. It's ancient wisdom. Ernest Holmes tells us, but what do we mean by the spiritual world? We mean the world of conscious intelligence. Conscious intelligence. So we believe that there's a spiritual truth to the universe. This spiritual truth to this universe is profound. It is the spiritual reality. And this thing itself, as he calls it, is absolutely everything. And anything and everything that we talk about is the thing itself. Doesn't matter what we're talking about. How positive it's being talked about, whatever we choose, it's still the thing itself. And there is this mystery that goes even beyond that, and that's sort of the infinitude. And it goes way beyond what we can even speak and talk about. But when we're talking about it, it's still the thing itself. And so we can experience it also through the mystical experience.
The thing itself, pretty esoteric name, don't you think? Right? And so part of the reason why Ernest Holmes uses the term in this beginning, the thing itself, is because we have a lot of preconceived ideas when it comes to the word God. So to get behind, beneath, around, and through those preconceived ideas, he starts out with the notion of the thing itself. And it's a radical notion because in the thing itself, there's no entity. There's no entity God. Because the thing itself is everything. Everything. The undifferentiated spiritual absolute reality, as well as the created physical world, as well as everything that causes creation to take place. Do you see? There's no entity in that. There's only isness, beingness, the one infinite thing, which he calls mind. Mind, the thing, spirit, consciousness, causation is beyond, and yet not beyond our grasp. Beyond in that it is so big. Within, in that wherever we grasp it, we are it to the extent that we grasp it. But since it is infinite, we can never encompass it. We shall never encompass God, and yet we shall always be in God and of God. Right? Because there's only one thing, the thing itself. And so there is this transcendent absolute reality, this spiritual reality, which is intangible and transcendent, and it is actually out there. And it is also the immanent experience of the incarnation, which is physical creation and life itself, your life and my life, and all life. All the infinitude of creation, it's all one thing. There's only one thing happening, a spiritual universe expressing itself through the material universe. And so, as Karen said, this is the only leap of faith that's required, that we live in a spiritual universe and that we can actually understand something about it. Now, granted, there is a transcendent mystery that we can only experience in our deepest mystical experiences. And yet there's so much that we can see and know and understand. And it begins at the beginning, the thing itself. We use terms like God, one, the all, to represent this thing itself. And of course, we use the circle because of its infinite nature, right? It just goes round and around and around. But we have to really, when we look at this, when we look at this symbol, we have to remember that there's nothing outside the circle. The circle represents that infinitude that is inclusive and encompassing of absolutely everything. And we call it lots and lots of different names, as Lainey so beautifully sung to us. But you see, this is a radically different point of view. This oneness and understanding the nature of the universe gives us the ground on which we stand, and everything else in the science of mind logically and empirically follows from this single premise. There's one thing happening, and that thing is God. That thing is the spiritual reality. But again, because we have this notion of God, we begin to let's see. We want to change our metaphors and the words that we use because of the way in which the word God has been defined in the past. And so we take this word God and we break it into three aspects, into three ways in which we can talk about it, discover it, explore it, work with it, and be it. And so, those of you who have taken classes, right, you know what these are. Spirit, the absolute undifferentiated potential, the impulse of love, the I that I am, and that absolute reality from which all creation springs. The law, the universal cause, the universal power, the universal law of cause and effect that takes that impulse and is so intelligent, it knows how to make everything, right? Babies, fingernails, quasars, hummingbirds, monitors, sound monitors, everything, right? It's the intelligence that knows how to take a cause and turn it into an effect. It knows everything there is to know about how to do that. And of course, the manifest physical body, the manifest physical universe, the body of God. And you'll notice one of the most profound things that is, in addition, a radical shift from the way in which so often spirituality is practiced, is that you'll notice that the body of God, creation, is included in the allness. It's not, oh, there's creation, there's the earth, and, it's not so great, so we got to transcend it, leave it, get better than it. No, the manifest body of God, this right here is necessary for the wholeness, for the thing itself, to actually experience and express itself. And when we say that we want to have a shift in consciousness, that we want to understand something about the universe, do you see, we are deliberately seeking to shift our understanding of this notion of ultimate reality, to release the old ideas about God, and to discover something new. And we realize that, do you see, these three aspects, spirit, law, and body, they're all contained within the whole. And if you were in the Science of Mind class this morning, right, we had the conversation about the continuum of spirit and matter. We think that spirit's over here and matter's over there, and prayer or spirituality is the thing that leaps across the gap, this deep divide between us and our higher self, or between us and God, or between spirit and matter, as if they were two entirely different things. But you see, they're contained within the one. It's all one. And so spirit and matter is actually the continuum of the same thing. So we could say body is simply spirit slowed down into a form that we can see. We call that matter, as if it were something different. Or we could say spirit is simply body, simply matter, speeded up back into its original idea. A single continuum, and we get to see how that continuum is shaped from consciousness into form.
Yeah, so let's take the intangible, the absolute reality.
Oh, you know what? Hang on before you start.
Okay.
I'm going to show you one other thing, which is what we're going to talk about in the third and fourth weeks, which all of you have seen, right? It's our teaching symbol. Of course, we have the creative process, which is how spirit moves through law into form. And so that's going to be the thing that we're going to finally end up with. As we walk through all of this through the whole month.
Right, so there's the teaching symbol.
That's right, there's our teaching symbol. Okay.
So, intangible, the thing itself, absolute reality, God, love. It's the same thing as that which we also call the physical universe. So let's look at an example. Let's talk about H2O. Let's just take H2O as a primary example. It's energy in a form that we can see. It's form that we can see. It's undifferentiated reality, H2O. It becomes in its physical form due to the law of cause and effect, right? And the creative process is in play. And so here we have gas, we have liquid, right? And we have solid. Spirit, soul, body. Gas, liquid, solid. So the fundamental properties of this thing called H2O have not changed. The properties have not changed. It's still and always will be 1 hydrogen, 2 oxygens. Who are our chemists in the room?
Wait, I think it's the other way around, but that's all right. H2O.
See? Who are the chemists in the room?
It is okay. It is okay.
Great in math, not great in science. 2 oxygens.
No, 2 hydrogen.
Okay.
H2.
For those of you at home, make sure you get this right. 2 hydrogens, 1 oxygen. Woo. Wow. I can understand subjective and conscious mind, like not H2O. Okay.
It's all good.
So, it's just different forms. We can point to the podium. We can point to love. We can point to anything. It's just different forms, right? And so it's all about how to create and manifest through the law of attraction, and we can point to anything. Doesn't matter what it is. So again, it's just the whole. It's just the whole in various, limitless, countless aspects. The thing that we tend to do, and we say it and we hear it, is we tend to separate spirit, soul, body. But it's all one thing. There is no separation to it.
Yeah, so why do we do that? Why do we want to talk about spirit, soul, and body? Well, it would be like talking about H2O and not having a word for ice, and not having a word for rain, and not having a word for cloud. Do you see? It's all H2O. It's all the same stuff, but it shows up differently. And if we want to work with it, we actually have to understand what aspect of H2O we're working with. If we want to drink it, we actually have to use the liquid part. And if we want ice, we actually have to allow it to solidify in our refrigerator or in our freezer. So we recognize, we use this analogy H2O to realize that the fundamental quality and properties are precisely the same, but it does actually have different aspects to it. And we really want to remember that no matter how often we talk about it, these are conventions. This is a convention because we can't break up that which is the thing itself. We're not actually breaking it apart. And one of the ways that I always try to remind myself of this or get a hold of this is that if we look at our own reality, right? I can talk about my physical body, I can talk about my emotional state, I can talk about my intellectual experience, my mental state, and I can talk about my spiritual reality. And I talk about them as if they're separate, right? So I can, let's say, run a marathon and my body is exhausted, but I can be emotionally excited that I finished the marathon, even though my body's exhausted. Do you see? So I can actually talk about them as if they were two different things. And yet ultimately, right, it's still all of me. It's still the wholeness of who I am. And I'm simply getting a hold of different aspects of myself. And we recognize how interwoven they are and how they play on each other and play together. And so this helps us. We don't ever want to become confused. That when we say spirit, law, and body, and we talk about these different aspects of the one, we don't ever want to become confused that somehow we're separating them apart. These are merely conventions so that we can get a hold of this thing that's infinite. And so if we really imagine this something that is infinite, right, it's going to take an infinite number of words and images to actually describe it because it's infinite. And so we're simply seeking ways to access it, understand it, and ultimately to use it. And so our job is this opportunity to grapple with, what do I really understand to be true about the thing itself? And what am I bringing with me from an old idea about God? How do I engage in clearing out some of that old stuff and really allowing myself to play with this radical notion that there's really only one thing going on? And this one thing, do you see, the whole point of the physical universe is the whole point here is the trajectory of consciousness of this one thing to wake up to itself, to experience itself, experiencing itself. Do you see? When we're unconscious, when we're not conscious, when we're unaware, like a small child who has not yet awoken up to itself, there's simply reality, but there's no awareness of it. So while we understand this thing to be conscious, it's not until it wakes up that it is self-conscious. The entire trajectory of evolution is for consciousness to create in matter more and more and more complex forms that ultimately awaken to themselves, you and me. And anywhere in the universe that self-awareness has come into being, anywhere that there is self-reflection and an ability to see this is the universe, and I can participate in it, and I can learn the laws, and I can use them. Do you see, you are the place where consciousness is awakening. The universe is awakening to itself, to actually discover itself as the thing itself, what it does, how it works, and how it creates.
And so when we are conscious and are awakened to that very fact that when we know this, that is actually what ignites the power within.
Are we moving to that?
Yes.
We are. Yay! Thank you, Ryan Brown, for that fabulous thing.
Yes. And this is why we're starting here for the entire year with our annual theme of Ignite the Power Within. So when we know that the awakening of self-awareness in the human experience, in the human being, that consciousness, it's in this awakening that consciousness recognizes that this is what is happening, consciousness sees it, and now consciousness knows how to consciously use it. That is where it ignites the power within. And knowing this, we know how to participate with it, how to use it, how to experience it, and it's not God igniting it. It's the knowledge of this ground from which we're talking about, the understanding of the thing itself.
Okay, so I'm going to repeat what Karen just said, because I think this is where we go sometimes a little false. We think when we say ignite the power within that we're going to open ourselves up and God is somehow going to ignite us. Let me remind you, the thing itself is all that's happening. God is already present. The infinite power and presence of the universe is already the I am that you are. You are also reenacting, absolutely made in the image and likeness of this divine reality. And the universe is waking up as you. So it's not God that ignites the power within. It is your recognition, your understanding, and your use of the understanding of the way the universe works, your conscious participation in it, your joyous creations that come from it, that is you igniting the power within you to create your life. Yes, right? And so all this year is about learning how to ignite this power, tools and techniques and aspects and different areas of life in which it will be applied, and all of the ways. And let me just go on a little tangent here, a little rant here, okay?
Sure.
How much in metaphysics, in science of mind, in spiritual living, we do not like the word power. We want everything to be ease and grace and for love to flow through us, and we're just going to allow Spirit. But you are that, and you have the power. Actually, you are the power, and it is your willingness to be powerful that really allows you to move into something new, to give your gift, contribute, make a difference, and have the life of your dreams. So we're going to spend this year embracing power in a healthy, conscious, spiritual way. Are you up to it? And so it is.
So it is.
I hope you love watching these as much as we love sharing them with you. And to help us spread the message and to keep this going, please donate. You can text. You'll find the number on your screen. You can go find Easy Tithe as an app and find CSL Dallas. Or you can come to our website, CSLDallas.org/give, and donate there. And while you're there, check us out. And when you're in Dallas, come visit. We want you to be part of our community. And we love having you here.